Hey guys and gals, Effie here. Today we are going to be talking about Persuasion, but not the book version. We're going to be talking about Netflix's adaptation of Jane Austen's Persuasion. And yeah, there's some good, there's some bad. It's getting a heck of a lot of hate on the internet, and I think that some of it's warranted and some of it's just not. Before we get going, if you would please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Also, if you like the video, like it, but generally just make sure you're subscribed, even if you think that you already are. Sometimes YouTube undoes that, which is really kind of a pain in my foot. All right, so on to the show, or movie. It's a movie. Yeah, it's a movie. So I watched it a few weeks ago when it very first came out because I really like Jane Austen adaptations and I tend to watch them immediately whenever they're available. And then I watched it again last night, sort of to make sure that I remembered everything before I recorded this. And I actually liked it better the second time. I didn't dislike it the first time. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's all right. I can watch that. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't in love with it. And then the second time I watched it, I noticed some subtleties and appreciated some subtleties that I missed the first time around. So, out the gate, I want to say up front, I don't hate this movie. I think that it is getting a lot of hate online because it's popular to hate on it. I also think that there's this sort of like popular trend over the last few years where people will just take something and completely tear it apart. And for some reason, people really like watching folks tear something down. I'm not really into that. Like if something's bad, I'll say, hey, that's not great. But I'm not going to tear it up. I'm not going to tear it apart. I will talk about some things that I think are done poorly. But I don't think it's bad as a whole. Okay. So basically what they've tried to do is take a Jane Austen novel, Persuasion, and adapt it for a modern audience, which is not an uncommon thing to do. It's been done very successfully. What's it called? Marie Antoinette did it really successfully. Bridgerton has done it very successfully. And I think what's going on, I think that they're trying to sort of pull some of that Bridgerton hype and ride on Bridgerton's coattails a little bit, because Regency is very popular right now. Bridgerton is very popular right now, and for good reason. It is stunning. Even if you find the romances and the drama a bit youthful, if you will, it is visually stunning. And so I think that Netflix is trying to sort of pull some of the Bridgerton enthusiasm, and I think that they missed the mark a bit. I think they misunderstood why Bridgerton is so popular, and that because of that, that is why they missed capturing a lot of that audience's attention, or captured their attention and then disappointed them, which is arguably worse. So here's the things I liked about the show, and then we'll talk about some things that I didn't or thought that they didn't do very well. And I'm just going to kind of ramble for the next few minutes, so you're going to have to pardon me. This is not organized in any way, shape, or form. Basically, I watched the film when it first came out, and then I watched it again last night and sort of kind of took some notes, some really messy notes. Pardon my handwriting. I'm glad you don't have to read this. So the premise is that they've taken Persuasion, they have kept the Regency feel, but they've tried to sort of pull in a modern audience by having fourth wall breaks. So the main character, Anne, sort of looks at the camera and talks directly to the audience, which some people like and some people don't. I think that when it was done, it was actually done really well. The character is charming. The actress that plays it very well. She feels like the character. She doesn't feel like an actress playing the character. She actually feels like the character, which is good. And I think that the sort of snarky, sarcastic sort of humor that she exhibits when she's breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to us, I think that that was really well done. What I didn't like was the insertion of modern language into what was otherwise purely Regency dialogue. So they would say things like, you know, we're strangers now. We're worse than strangers. We're exes. And it's like, what? You know, there's no concept of exes in the Regency period. And that's not necessarily to say that they can't use those terms. It was just like, it was done so infrequently and in such an intentional and obvious way that I think that it didn't do what they were trying to get it to do. What they were trying to get it to do is sort of jive with younger folks. And I don't think that that's what happened. I think it just felt sort of awkward and sort of shoehorned in. And I think that the whole thing would have gone off a lot better without them being like, oh, he's a 10. And it's like, what? You know, like, like, no, he's not. He's kind of a jerk. He's very handsome, but he's a handsome jerk. And, so yeah, I feel like that modern language, when it was used, which was sparing, was not used well. And I think if you're going to do something like that, you need to go all in. I think if they were going to use modern language to convey the idea, if they were going to do a full pull from Regency into our era, or if they were going to keep it Regency but use modern language, it should have been done all the way through. Because it was used so sparingly and it was just sort of like inserted into period dialogue, it felt very jarring. It did not work, which is really unfortunate because I think the concept was cute, but they missed the mark. So I liked the fourth wall camera breaks. I thought that that was really well done. And I thought that that made us sort of connect with the protagonist better, but the use of modern language, random insertions of modern language. What was the other thing? Oh, playlist. So she's like unpacking this box of mementos, which is a very period thing, you know, that a woman would do. She has a love there. She's keeping a lock of his hair, whatever. And she's like, pulls out this sheet of music, the playlist that he made me for blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, yeah, okay. That was less jarring for me than he's a 10 and we're exes. And then they just kind of stopped after that. Like they used it like 3 or 4 times and then they just stopped. And anyway, it didn't work. It would have been better without those insertions. So other things that they did well. Anne, the main character, is a sort of a relatable klutz. She's kind of awkward. She makes a lot of social faux pas. She speaks her mind when she shouldn't, or when it's not really appropriate for a woman in her period to do so. And I think that they portrayed that really well. I think that they made her likable in a family of people who are patently unlikable. Her father is vain and a wastrel, sort of. He spends all of their money on garbage and vanity and pomp and really unnecessary things. He's basically ruining the family because he can't stop spending money trying to impress the Joneses. And her older sister is, you know, a socialite, same as the father, basically a female carbon copy of the father, very, very vain, very pretentious. And then the younger sister is a complete narcissist, but almost like a self-aware narcissist. She reminded me a lot of the like stereotypical wine mum, you know, where she's got her hair highlighted and it's in long layers and she's always wearing a chunky sweater and tight jeans and knee-high boots and drinking pumpkin chai lattes. So like if you wanted to sort of carbon copy a basic bitch, the younger sister is basically that personality-wise, encapsulated. And I think that the actress that portrayed the younger sister, and I can't for the life, Mary, I think her name is, she did such a good job. She did a phenomenal job. That girl was so much that thing that she was trying to be, which is basically the like, well, the thing you don't understand about me is I'm an empath and it's just really hard for me to be around people who are hurting, so I can't take care of my son. And it's like, yeah, okay, I've heard that before. Like, I know people like that. Like, everybody knows people like that. So I think that they did a really good job with the Mary character. I think they did a really good job with the Anne character, the main character. I wasn't sold on the sister. I don't think we got enough of her. I think the dad was really well done. We definitely got the feeling of what he is. The one that they missed was the older sister. But, you know, she served her purpose. She wasn't really a key element in the story. The fact that she had this horrible family wasn't really part of the story so much as to, like, differentiate her from them. So the whole premise of Persuasion is that Anne fell in love with a man who was not a man of means. He was not from a well-to-do family. All he had was a massive amount of ambition and his love for her. And he wanted to marry her. He proposed to her, and her family, specifically her dead mother's best friend, who has tried to help as much as she can, sort of the, like, auntie influence, you know, persuaded her against accepting his proposal. Like, basically saying, like, he's not a man of means. He's not going to be able to look after you in the way that you are accustomed to being looked after. You can do better. Love is not enough, is basically what she was told. And she was young and naive, and she believed them. And I, at 40, am here to tell you that is a completely factual statement. Love is not enough. Love will not pay your bills. You cannot eat love. What you can do is use love to build a life together. And, yeah, nothing to do with the show anyway. So she was persuaded against marrying this man that she was madly in love with, and that was 8 years prior. So fast forward 8 years, the guy's coming back into town. He's a captain in the British Navy, and now he's a man of means. You know, he's making a decent amount of money, serving his country or whatever, because I guess captains were considered well paid. You know, and so he comes back around. She's still madly in love with him, but she thinks because she rejected him because he was not a man of means, and he knew that that was why, that he hates her, which is a logical assumption. Like, you know, here's this woman who professes to love me, and she's so shallow that my paycheck is preventing her from marrying me. So that's an ego blow. Yeah, so I think they did a really good job at portraying her family as patently unlikable. You know, the dad is shallow and vain. The sister is shallow and pretentious. The youngest sister is a complete narcissist. And they did a really good job at making you feel all of those characters, or making you feel all those things about those people. I also love how awkward the main character is. Like, a lot of heroines in, you know, novels at that time, they're very graceful, they're very reserved, they're very self-possessed. Jane Austen's main characters tend to be more outgoing. Like, that is a typical Jane Austen heroine. She's very forward and she speaks her mind, which was out of place in that society, or frowned upon in that society. And her heroines tend to be a little more outspoken than they should be. So Anne definitely fits that bill, but she has this added layer of clumsiness and awkwardness, and I don't know how much of that was portrayed in the original book. We're talking specifically about the adaptations. Full disclosure, I have not read Jane Austen's Persuasion. I love Jane Austen adaptations. I find her writing to be a bit dry and slow for my taste. So I don't love Jane Austen's writing. I love her stories, if that makes sense. So I love that the character of Anne was portrayed as this sort of clumsy, awkward, says the wrong thing at the wrong time, or says the right thing in the wrong way. And the only person who really gets her, and the only person who really understands who she is Wentworth. Wentworth is the love interest in the book. It's the man she fell in love with 8 years ago, who she was put off of. And the way that they introduce him is sort of like, she's very vulnerable. She's in the situation where she's like made an ass of herself. And I found that the actor who portrayed Wentworth, and I don't know how much of this is intentional or how much of this is just his face. He has a very difficult to read face. there were these moments in the movie where he would look at her and his face was just blank. Not like bored blank, just inscrutable, I guess is a better way. Not blank, inscrutable. You couldn't tell what he was thinking. And I don't know how much of that was on purpose and how much of that is just he was cast because his face is inscrutable, because you can't tell what he's thinking when you look at him. So I think he was a really good pick. So the first time I watched it, when it very first came out, I didn't like Wentworth. I didn't get what all the fuss was about. They kept saying how handsome he was. I don't find him handsome. They kept saying how charming he was. I didn't find him charming. I found him to be sort of a bore and a bully. And I didn't like him. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, okay, I get that he's supposed to be this, like, you know, almost Darcy-esque character where he's sort of gruff and distant. But I didn't get gruff and distant. What I got was disinterested and pompous and boring. And then the second time around, I noticed that the second time I watched it, I noticed that there were these moments where he would look at her and just watch her. And I missed them the first time around. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of sort of pauses where the camera kind of pans past him and he's just watching her in a very clear devotion sort of way. The first time I did not get that he was still deeply, deeply in love with her. I saw it the second time. And I don't know if that's because I was looking for it and I was kind of over my, I don't really like him sort of thing. Or how much of it was, maybe it was too subtle and I need to be beaten over the head with it. I don't know. I'm not really a love story kind of person. I really like rom-coms, but I like cheesy rom-coms, which are not subtle. So I don't know. Maybe I was just out of it that day. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for love. I don't know. So yeah, I feel like the character Wentworth was really well chosen, specifically because his face is so difficult to read. I think these subtle glances and him watching her in a very devotional sort of way, I think that was really well done. I think that the reason I didn't like it the first time or didn't like him the first time was because I was missing it, not because it was not well done. He's significantly more likable the second time around. He's very, I don't know if dashing is the right word, because he's very understated. Like, he's not flashy. He's not out there, you know, trying to get your attention. He's just a kind, cordial, attentive man, which, like, what the hell more could you want? You know, screw handsome. Give me a guy who listens to what I'm saying, right? Okay. So the first time I watched it, I didn't notice that he was into her until, like, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through. It was when they were in the sweet shop, so at like an hour and 15, hour and 20, somewhere around there. That was the first time that I was like, oh, he really loves her. Like, I missed it until that point. And I don't know if it like took me that long to get invested. But I think that says a lot about the way that the film was made. Movies are meant to pull you into the world, and yes, they're for entertainment, but they're also supposed to pull you into the world. They're supposed to get you involved in the story, get you involved in the narrative, get you invested in the characters. And I don't feel like Persuasion does a great job of that. I was much more invested the second time around, but I feel like you shouldn't need to be... If you are a person who generally loves romantic movies and you generally love Austen stories, like, this should be an easy win, and it wasn't. It took me watching it twice to really appreciate it, which tells me that it's missing something. So here's some of the things that I think that they missed. Here's some of the things that I think that were available to them that they failed to capitalize on. Let's go back to Bridgerton. One of the things that makes Bridgerton so successful is how absolutely visually stunning the show is. Regency period, they were very open to color, they were very open to expression, they were very open to style, and patterns and texture in their clothing, in the environment around them. And although the there was color in the scenes, I feel like it was very understated, or almost too understated. I feel like a lot of it was like very blank. Like there were these big open expanses of walls, and yes, on the side there would be this like beautiful, colorful, painted ceramic jar or something, or painting or something. But like you have this vast open expanse of wall, you know, and would it be necessarily period appropriate to cover that wall in wallpaper or a bigger painting or whatever? Probably not, but it would invest the viewer more. It would give us more of a feast for the eyes. And I feel like they failed in that mark. I also found that there's a lot of blue and gray tones in the show, but not like happy blue, like a very understated sort of depressed blue. So rather than using color to help you feel emotions, Bridgerton's really good at this. You can watch Bridgerton with the sound off and no subtitles, assuming you can't lip read, and you know what is going on in the scene or the vibe of the scene based on the palette and the lighting, the color palette of the lighting. So what colors the characters are wearing, the backgrounds behind them, and the way that light is used. They're really good at using lighting in Bridgerton. And I feel like Persuasion really missed that mark. The costuming was very subtle, which is fine, but it was not used to its full effect. If you're going to have a gorgeous gown with a lot of like detail here or runching or whatever, like you need to pull that shot in closer. Like if the thing is that she's really vain and she's like got all this fine detail and this crazy feather or whatever, like pull in on that detail. Frame the characters better. They had a lot of really far pulled out shots, like watching from across a room sort of shots. And I just don't feel like they were using the environment to its fullest. Anyway, so I didn't think that they used the costuming to its fullest potential. I didn't think that they used the background or architecture or the decorations in the behind to its fullest potential. I think that the shots were too far away. It was difficult to get intimate with the characters. The only one we ever got close-ups of was Anne. And that's great. It helps tie you to the main character, but like everybody else just sort of felt like actors on a stage. Like we were very removed from them. And so I didn't feel like they used the camera to its fullest potential. I didn't feel like they used the costumes to its fullest potential. I didn't feel like they used the environments that they were in, because they were in some, beautiful houses and beautiful gardens, and they just didn't use them. They were just, like painted backdrops. They may as well have been. And that's really a shame, because they had access to all this stuff and they just didn't use it. And I don't think they used lighting to its fullest potential. Not that the lighting was bad, but that it wasn't leveraged to pull us in and make us feel things. Another thing that really helps you feel stuff in a movie is the music. And the music in Persuasion is very nondescript. It is not memorable. It does not particularly add to the scenes in any way. We've all been watching a really emotional scene, and you get this big swell of music and you feel it in your chest, and Persuasion doesn't have any of that at all. Nothing. So it's kind of a shame. They have all of these tools in the filmmaker's toolbox and they just didn't use them. They used some things effectively. I think that the script was fine, aside from the few really jarring uses of modern language. I feel like the breakaways or the fourth wall breaks where the main character's talking directly to the camera, I think that was fine. I found that very endearing and engaging. I think that it was well done. But they have all of these other tools that they just didn't use. Like I write books, right? Like if I could have music to go along with the book while you're reading it, like why would I not do that? And they just didn't. And the music in the background is probably period appropriate. It's very like light piano-y, whatever, but it's not like it needed its own proper musical score. And it just didn't. Or if it did, it was just not, it didn't get you invested. It didn't pull you into the scene. It didn't make you feel anything. music in movies should make you feel stuff, and this just didn't, which is kind of a shame. So, you know, in all, I like the movie. I like the concepts. I think that there were some execution issues, which is kind of a shame because I think that the people who made the movie really loved the content. I think that you can tell that they were invested in making a good film. I don't feel like it was, you know, it didn't feel like one of these, oh, we have to kick out this film because of contracts or whatever. Like, no, I feel like the people who made this movie really loved the story. And I think that the story they told was good, but because they didn't use all of the tools or didn't use them all well, I feel like it kind of fell short of what it could have been, which is a shame. It had tremendous potential. But like I said, it wasn't unenjoyable. I still like it. I think that some of the people who are really tearing it down are doing it a disservice. I don't think it is bad. It's just not great, which is a shame because it could have been great. So yeah, Persuasion the movie, not Persuasion the book, and technically this is a book channel, but you know, stories is stories and all that. Thanks for hanging out. If you like the content that I'm making here, please like the video and subscribe. If you want to see me do more movie discussions or just kind of sit and ramble at you guys for 20 minutes, let me know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Have an excellent day, and I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and of course if you like the way that I present information, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below. You can find all of my social media contacts in the description, and of course if you want to keep up with me and the progress I'm making on my current novel, you can do that at effywritesbooks.com. Thank you so much for watching, have an excellent day, and I'll see you next time.